The first one is,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how long have you been a psychotherapy trainer and how did you get into this as a career?
Okay, great
How long have you
question.
been a psychotherapy trainer and how did you get into this as a career?
Okay, so I'll backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
I've been working in mental health my whole career, and have been training in and around the areas of mental health for more than 10 years, maybe 15 years. And I am just beginning my life as a psychotherapy trainer. And what's been really exciting is to see because I've been a psychotherapist for 13 years or something. And I qualified and became a UKCP registered psychotherapist about 5 years ago, nearly 6 years ago now. What's been exciting is to see the way that my existing training skills transfer into working with psychotherapy trainees. But what an exciting experience it is to be teaching people who want to be psychotherapists. I'm used to teaching managers in organizations about how to manage their staff for good mental health.
Yeah.
So to be training people with a real appetite to know about psychotherapy and also to learn the skills of how to support people is a thrill. It's great. So as I said to you as we were getting on the call, I'm really buzzy as I begin this new stage in my career.
It is really exciting, isn't it? And people really engage and they're interested in the material and they someone asks lots of questions and so many different perspectives and different ideas. I mean, like you know, I found that really exciting. How did you become a psychotherapist now? What was the thing that kind of sparked you into this as a career?
Okay, so I've worked in social services, if you will, all my life. Okay. I came out of university. I did a bachelor's degree, and I was working as a behavioral therapist with autistic children. And I realized I wanted to work with adults rather than children. So I did a degree. I did a master's degree in disability management in employment and vocational rehabilitation, which is a mouthful. Essentially, it's about how to support people with disabilities in the world of work.
Right.
And so my first proper job was running an employment service for people recovering from mental health issues. And I loved it. I loved working one-to-one with people, coaching them, helping them get back to work.
Yeah.
But I was doing it all instinctively because I didn't have a specific mental health training. So, and I was burning myself out. So I began to get clinical supervision in my work from a local supervisor who turned out to be a TA therapist and trainer.
Yeah.
And he and his wife were beginning a training program, or had recently begun a training program. So I did my TA 101 with them. This is back in 2001. And then I began the training program. So
we
I was working
about the same time then.
Okay. Yeah. So I was working in mental health and alongside that training in TA initially just to give me sort of structure my work and to give me self-care skills as much as anything. Yeah. And I don't think I really it wasn't maybe until the third year of my 4-year training that I began to think about actually being a psychotherapist. And alongside this, I was working on the development of I was founding and starting a mental health charity, which was based on an organic farm where people with mental health issues would come to the farm and work on the farm as part of their recovery. And I was very focused on that.
Yeah.
So for many years, psychotherapy was just something I did on the side as I was developing this charity, because my interest was still very strongly in the world of work and helping people recover by using work. So I finished my TA training in 2005, and then I began to practice under supervision, but only a few hours a week, just a few hours a week. So it took me 12 years from the beginning of my psychotherapy training course to gaining my CTA qualification. It was a long, slow journey.
And for some people it is, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it was paced just right, because I just gradually increased the amount of psychotherapy I was doing and began to decrease the amount of management I was doing within this mental health charity. But my motivation was very much, the more I got into my career in mental health, the more I was moving away from one-to-one working with clients, because I was progressing in my career. And so I was getting more and more managerial. And I realized that wasn't going to give me fulfillment ultimately. And I realized that the way I could continue to have a professional career would be if I really used my training in the world of psychotherapy.
That's great.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. That gives people a real flavour. And I think, for lots of people who are thinking about training as psychotherapists, it's helpful for them to hear how people come into this, and the fact that actually sometimes, it can take people people take quite some time actually to make that transition, and actually that's okay. It's fine.
Yeah. I was very happy working, 1 day a week as a psychotherapist for a number of years, just gradually accruing the hours that I'd need to be able to go to my exam.
Yeah, brilliant.
And I had a young family, so there was no sense of rush.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Excellent, thank you. So it's a specialist area that you're particularly passionate about in psychotherapy?
Yeah, absolutely. The area that I'm really interested in is, in terms of theory, what I'm really interested in is the way we might think about a distinction between ego states and ego structure and ego functioning, and a core sense of self, which I think informs the development of our ego, but sits alongside the ego structure. I'm working on an article right now to try to explain some of this. I'm hoping that I can get it into the TAJ eventually, but a model that I love is Mary Cox's self and ego model, the fried egg model, that isn't very well known because it's hard to find the article.
Yeah.
But because my trainers had been trained by Mary Cox, it was quite foundational in our training, or at least the way I read it.
Yeah.
So why I'm particularly interested in it, because I've spent 4 years from 2014 to 2018 running and working in a therapeutic community for people with personality disorders at the farm just outside of Kendal. And the participants in that community found it invaluable to understand that it's not who they are that is impaired, that is disordered. It's their ego structure that has been impaired or disordered by their early years experiences, by the traumas that they've been through. Because I think the diagnosis
is a very helpful way of thinking about it.
Yeah, because I think the diagnosis of personality disorder, without any information, just makes people think, well, if my personality is disordered, what chance have I got?
Yeah.
There's no sense of hope.
Yeah.
And if you think about the core, what I love about TA is this core principle of everyone can change, and we can decide to be different. And that applies so strongly for people who've been diagnosed with that diagnosis.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm really interested in. And I think the other thing I'm a kinesthetic learner. I sort of learn through experience. And I think one of the reasons my training journey was so long was it takes me a while to really absorb theory. So something I feel quite passionate about is simplifying theory and building it on, building TA, learning about TA sort of built on just really sort of simple practical examples of practice.
Yeah.
So that the theory makes sense and is grounded in child development, for instance.
That sounds great.
So I would say those are the things I think a lot about, and a sense of attachment and a sense of belonging. The work we did in the both in the community and then more broadly in this mental health charity on a farm is about the way in which people recover because they feel like they belong somewhere and they feel attached to somewhere. And the creation of a secure base that people can attach to. Really and how we then think about doing that in therapy.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, I'll move on to a third question. We've got 6 in total, so I'm just also kind of watching the time as well. So there was a trend.
I could talk all day. So
well, we both could, couldn't we? I think when we get on our, there's some things that we do feel passionate about. Why not? Yeah. Why not? Do you find that as a trainer you learn something as part of the sessions which you then take back into your practice?
Oh my Lord, yes. Just a couple of weeks ago I was sitting in with Andy as he was teaching a weekend in Leeds on the racket system. And I've never got on with the racket system. I've never liked that bit of theory or the script system. I've always thought, oh crumbs, that's so there's too many words, it's too complicated. When I'm working as a therapist in my room, I can't hold such a complex model in my mind, or at least I believed I couldn't. But the weekend with Andy just transformed my view of it. And it wasn't necessarily because of what Andy was teaching, but because of the collaboration we all had together as we worked through it as a group. And I came away from that weekend thinking, you know, I use this all the time. I just don't think of it as that rather complicated diagram from Richard Erskine. And it's just refreshed and renewed my interest in working with my clients and supporting them to frame their experiences in the way in which they are promoting or continuing scripts through discounts and through particular reinforcing memories. And so it goes back to what I said before, that theory really makes sense to me when I can ground it in practice.
Yeah.
And I think that that's exactly what the training weekend did the other day. So I think one of the things that's most exciting to me about being a trainer of psychotherapists is I just know I'm going to get this theory even sort of more deeply in my bones from teaching it and talking about it like that.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there's nothing that helps you really ground a theory is to actually to teach it and then to engage in the group in a discussion about it. It's really
Absolutely.
I think. Yeah. So what advice actually would you give to somebody who is thinking of taking up psychotherapy or counselling as a career?
Wow, that's a great question.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who's thinking about?
I would say be prepared to take your time.
Yeah.
Don't expect to be able to jump into it quickly, but and this is really based on my own experience of have a job or a career that is flexible enough to allow you to gradually increase your hours as a therapist or a counselor, and to gradually decrease your work in that way. Because if you're going to work in private practice, I think it's going to take you 4, 5, or 6 years to really develop a full-time private practice. At least where I live, I live in quite a relatively remote area of the Lake District, small market town, Kendal, and so it takes a while to get yourself known. And I don't think you're a good therapist if you're doing it to pay all your bills. You've got enough to worry about as you're learning the skills without also trying to make a living. And I think I saw a number of colleagues when I was training who tried to go all in too soon, and then the stress of that alongside trying to learn to be a therapist was quite challenging.
The pressure of kind of mortgage payments and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
Really
absolutely.
difficult. And I think that's a helpful approach for people to think about.
Yes. And I think really network yourself, really feel like you've got support out there for you. So not only your supervision and your training group, but have peers that you can talk to, people you can have a sense of collaboration with, people who you can refer to and people who refer to you, so that you're not lonely. And a really good bit of advice, which I think I got from my supervisor, was when you feel like you have successes with your clients, wear them lightly. Don't because if you own that success and feel too much like it was down to you, then when your clients don't do well, you are going to similarly own their failures. And that's very hard to shoulder, because you only see someone for an hour a week or an hour in a fortnight. And sort of be humble about the degree to which you actually are making a difference in that person's life, and recognize it's them that's making the difference. Because you work with some people who will really thrive with you, and sometimes you'll work with people who won't, and you have to be able to, at the end of the day, go home and still feel like you've done a good job.
I think that's very true. Last couple of things. I really like what you're saying about that. I think it's really important, actually. But the last couple of points is, how do your training sessions support students in their careers? What are the things that you perhaps do in your sessions that support students in their careers? Any thoughts on that?
I think, going back to what I've said already, I think rooting the training sessions in practice. So getting
Yeah, I was
people
wondering
to
about, thinking about that.
think about what we're talking about in terms of what they're already doing, in terms of the people they work with, even if they're not therapists and counselors, but think about the relationships they're in, both personally and professionally, and how might they use the theory to improve workplace relationships, to better safeguard the people they support. So wherever someone is in their journey, make it relevant to them, and try to use real examples of the work. And I think to be really frank about the challenges of it, and to normalize the whole thing. So to help people see, well, just like driving a car, you know, we can all be counselors and therapists. Everyone will be their own version of a counselor and a therapist.
Yeah.
You'll be the best counselor and therapist that you can be. I'm a very strong proponent of your own therapy. I think your own personal therapy is as important as the training process.
Yeah.
And so being really a strong advocate for that being a very good investment of time and money. And that, again, helping you in your career, regardless of where you take the training.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. Last one, actually. Has there been a particularly memorable course that you've run, and why? Anything particularly memorable that you've run and why? Or maybe an event, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. I think there have been lots of things that I'm really proud of. I would say that the very first event I ever organized and ran was, maybe 15, 16 years ago now, was a conference on mental health recovery, in which the focus was about recovery. So when the concept of recovery was relatively new, particularly to the area that I work in Cumbria, we had about 200 people come to a conference on what recovery was. And we really engaged the participants of our work and made them a core part of the planning and the delivery of the conference. And I think that really set me on a path of the power in the work. Whatever work you do comes from empowering people to do it themselves, not placing yourself in a power position, but rather empowering people to recover or to lead. And that's then ran through all my work on the farm, and I think it runs through the teaching process. What I particularly like about your organization, Lynn, is the way in which you strongly advocate adult contracts when it comes to learning. You don't adopt a paternalistic position as teachers or as an organization. The learning is in people's hands, and you're empowering them to learn in the way that they want to learn. And that's why I think I feel very at home with the work that you and Andy have established, because it really sits alongside a value of mine, which is about empowerment. So I would say that conference was very formative for me in how to set up and support an event or a training or some learning for people.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So
you're welcome.
It's been really good to talk to you, Beren, and hopefully the people that are listening to this, watching this, will get a sense of what it's like to come and train with TA training organisations. So I will stop recording now, and thanks very much.